What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here, and more importantly, how are you doing today, Neil? You having a good day? Last week, I headed up to Nashville on Monday and came home on Sunday because of the Music City Open, and I want to tell you guys all about how it went down.
So catch me if I fall.
So rather than me just spending time talking through and standing in front of the camera, I figured we played 9 holes and kind of walk through the experience that way, giving you something to look at. We're gonna go double hex here, play into the gold basket. Get on back there, buddy. Oh, so short, so short. So one of the big reasons and things that I wanted to focus on when it came to going to Music City was, I think a lot of times when we hear about caddies on the Pro Tour, they function a lot more like a pack mule carrying the bag rather than an actual caddy trying to give insight to the player and help them succeed. So I kind of had the thought process, what would it be like to arrive at the course with Brodie and see him play every single practice round and see all the shots he's throwing out there, have the opportunity to, I don't know, maybe help him improve that way. At least that was the goal. Wow, that lifted like a lot. Okay. From a logistics standpoint, it made a lot of sense to work with and caddy for Brodie because I have the foundation connection, and so if I'm there kind of helping out with the event, helping on the, I don't know, like business side of things, we thought I could be able to set up a signing and do something cool for him there, and then he could worry about playing the whole week. And then from a content creation standpoint, I would be able to film some content while I was up there, as well as get a little more exposure and highlights in his channel, as well as being there for the practice round so I could be in Ezra's channel. Just more exposure because, once again, being part of the Foundation Network, the more that I get a chance to be in front of things allows the channel to grow, which is great for Foundation at the same time. So from a business standpoint, it really made like a ton of sense for me to be up there. And I was super stoked to kind of get to spend the week with Brodie and get to know him on that level. So we headed up on Monday, and I truly, the moment that he pulled onto the course, I was standing right there. Let's go. Frio trying to stand it up, and then we'll be aggressive with the charger. So when it comes to the Pro Tour, there is really one player in the entire setup that I feel like I am starstruck towards or would have like feelings of nervousness around. And if you've watched the channel at all, you know who that is. It's Calvin Heimberg. We are not standing there while Brodie does his stretches for more than 5 minutes before Calvin Heimberg rolls up around the corner, gets out of his van, comes over to talk to Brodie, and we got the chance to meet him. Little did I know that the cameraman wasn't going to be ready for the practice round until about 3 o'clock, and it was about 1:15 at the time. So Brodie and Calvin ended up playing 5 or 6 holes together, and it was just me, Brodie, and Calvin to start it off. And right then I kind of knew, I don't really care what the rest of this week does. This is pretty amazing. Nope, we got the finger cut there. Not near enough on it. Oh yeah, that was much better. That's a 7-speed, and it's probably going to be better than, yeah, that's a 7-speed, probably be better than the Charger. Anyways, we went to the practice rounds, and I know I'd had the conversation with Brodie on the front end about what he was expecting out of a caddy. It started off by, I kind of got like automatically sorted in because of him working with, like I said, more pack mules or people that are just going to carry the bag. Brodie really wasn't looking for input or anything like that in his decision making unless he was in a place that he'd never been, because how Brodie's bag set up, the shot selection is actually pretty straightforward. He only has like nukes, vultures, raptors, buzzes, a meteor that's snuck in there, and zones. So depending on the distance, pretty much calls for what the shot's gonna be. So being honest, my hope going into the week and seeing the rounds was hopefully that I knew we were gonna start off in more of this pack mule relationship at the beginning of the week, but after watching him throw the shots, maybe we could earn the trust as the week went on of, if you want help, I would be happy to help talk through some decision makings, especially when reads and things like that. But also, I'm not trying to cramp your style, and you've obviously been doing really well. So if you wanna vibe and do your thing, Brodie, game on. Don't let me stand in the way of that. That's perfect. So we played the 1 practice rounds on Brodie and Ezra's channel. It was really fun. getting to see kind of their dynamic, and they kind of laugh way more than you even think, and some of the stuff doesn't even make it into the cuts, but lots of joking, and you can just tell there's like a very relaxed comfort to all that. And it's also pretty cool because their bags are similar and their shot selection is somewhat similar. So they actually do learn a lot, and it's like legit practice during that round. So I think that if you're like looking for content of just kind of a peek into the window of what they're doing, Brodie and Ezra's practice rounds are pretty genuine in showing what they're actually trying to work on. So something that Brodie did not tell me when we initially set up me coming for the week, but ended up happening, was that he was going to be on the Joma's practice round. So honestly, I guess a little bit of a bucket list option or opportunity to end up on the practice round setup, which was actually super cool. One of my favorite parts about that is that they have 4 cameras rolling at all times. So you kind of get the opportunity to record and see everything that's out there. But what I also learned, if you go back and watch those practice rounds, is that whoever I was talking to, it kind of makes sense because I didn't have a mic on me, so the production would have been really low. But everyone out there was super willing to chat. And so there's like 4 or 5 conversations going on at all times. So whether I was talking to Yuli, Germ, Brad, who is Yuli's caddy, or Ezra, or Brodie, there's always someone that you're talking to while you're walking up the fairway. So we started filming at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and we finished filming at around 2 before heading over to Waffle House to get some waffles because there was bets that were made. Oh, that's really good. Sit. Okay, yeah, that was actually money. They're cutting grass. Let's make this play and get to the next green. So one of my favorite parts about getting to be on Jomez was the opportunity to chat with Big Germ about board games, because I'm a big board game guy. I know we have a lot of tabletop people out there. And at one point he was showing one of the Jomez camera crew guys his something he just printed for his new set of Wingspan. And I commented on it, and he was like, Robbie, you a board game guy? So it ended up a really fun conversation for several holes, and that's where I learned that a lot of the Jomez guys actually play a lot of board games as well. Okay, probably needed to put it on a little bit of hyzer. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, at least the first guy's showing up and showing out today. That's nice. So thank you to everyone that commented on the Jomez video and the Brodie and Ezra video, and we're like, hey, Robbie should have got a mic. We would love to hear Robbie's feature on all this. You guys are too kind, but that was not what this week was about. It was not about like, oh man, here's my chance to shine on Jomez. We're there to help Brodie perform and help Brodie to try to do his best at that Pro Tour event. We are still nowhere near a world in disc golf where content creators are ever gonna get featured on stuff like that. We kind of still need to build a name for ourselves. There it is. And y'all continuing to support and watch videos and comment and spread our name helps legitimize kind of what we're doing here, so that we can show some of the names at the top that, like, hey, it's not just the 100+ names that are competing on the Pro Tour every week that actually are going to be instrumental in helping grow this sport, but the everyday golfers and those of us out here trying to earn a living in disc golf and help grow the sport via working with beginners or instructional content or challenge videos and whatnot. Yeah, like, we need all of it to help grow the sport. So thank you guys for your continued love and support. Truly was felt all week reading the comments. So with most of the content creation done for the week, it was time to focus in and focus up and make sure that we are ready to put our best foot forward for the sake of competition. So on Wednesday, we had a practice round with Ezra, Brodie, and Holland Handley. So a little discraft round going, and it was honestly a ton of fun just getting to talk to Holland, see how she's attacking the course, questions like that, talking through some of the pros and cons that they feel of like having caddies at each event and what that looks like and what they're expecting out of caddies. Just a whole lot of conversation even about the course and what expectations they had for it. There was a ton of things learned in just spending a week talking with the pros, especially because fans didn't really show up until Thursday. So there was a lot of time and vulnerability for the just to be like, hey, this is how it is. What do we want to throw here? Let's just go We're going double hex. Let's go double stink. That sounds fun. But coming out of all the practice rounds that we had thrown, I really would say that the two biggest areas that we were concerned about actually playing in terms of like Brodie knowing what shots he wanted to throw and everything like that were the two island holes of 16 and 17. And we were really worried about that second shot on hole 4, which was the big turnover into the field. It felt like Brodie couldn't find a disc that was too understable because it was burning over to the right, or too overstable because we were hooking into the trees, and right was the miss, but we were leaving ourselves a lot of work for what should have been a really easy doable par 4 or par 5. Yeah, that first par 5 of hole 4. I actually think that's going to be pretty nice. But I did think it was interesting hearing a phrase that they used Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Brodie used it, Ezra used it, and even Holland used it when she joined us. And it was when talking about like plans afterwards, after the practice round, after shooting the video, after we went to lunch. Oh, hey, do you want to do this before you head to the gym? Do you want to do this before you do whatever? And they kept saying, can't do that, I gotta go to work. Sting did work, dude. We're gonna focus up and try to hit this putt real fast. This is one that like I was throwing a halo turn at a couple months ago. And we got lucky. That CT Luna is, I'm getting a little more pop on it. I think it's because it's a little more firm than the rubber blends. So the first time that I heard Ezra say the phrase, I gotta go to work, I was super confused because I was like, do you have like a part-time job that you're doing on the side, something like that? Because I know even like Raven Klein will do graphic design work on the side of like full-time touring. So I wondered for Ezra or Holland or Brodie, like what they were talking about with that. He was like, I gotta go to the field and work on this shot, and then I need to do some putting. Something that I think so many people forget is that they just assume that these players have gotten to the top level, that their form is all dialed in, and they're just like, oh yeah, I got this, I'm ready to go. And even putting is such a perishable skill, so players need to stay at the top of their game, practice putting quite often throughout the day. And there are a host of players that show up and play their practice round, and then they go do a host of other activities that aren't disc golf related. And that's probably because they've built the habit of doing that for years and years, and that was enough to do well on tour. Yet you have these new up-and-comers like Ella and Holland and Brodie and Ezra who are showing up, and they have the skills to compete already, and yet they're not satisfied with that. They're still grinding, they're still putting in the work. Once again, this isn't meant to call anyone out. I just gained like so much respect because you could see the people that were there after hours. If you guys remember my legendary caddy story from last year about Alan, who was gonna caddy for me all 3 days, I stayed at his house and he ended up having to get his appendix removed before I played round 1. Well, I stayed with Alan again this year during the MCO, even though I wasn't playing. We had an agreement that I would stay at his house so long as he kept all of his organs this time. And so Thursday, Alan and his friends, who call themselves the Henry Heisers, absolutely love it. We went out in the rain while Brodie wasn't out on the course. We went out and played Sharp Springs in the rain, playing doubles. It was a blast and had a super fun time with them. Sharp Springs is actually a really fun course if you guys are ever in the Nashville / like Smyrna area, I guess. But the rain did clear up in the late afternoon, so I ended up meeting Brodie back at the course because, like I said a little bit earlier in this video, there were 3 shots that we really needed to dial in, and that was 16, 17, as well as the second shot on hole 4. So that's exactly what we did. We played those holes over and over again until we felt like we dialed it in, and Brodie, we kind of laid out the decision that it was gonna be a machete that he was throwing, unless the wind picked up, and then it might turn into a venom, but most likely it's gonna be the machete for those holes. But let me tell you, those islands did not play as easy as everyone might have thought they did, because Calvin actually joined us for our island loop as well and played it with us a few times. So guys, it just telling you, as a massive Calvin fan, I got way more Calvin interaction than I ever thought was gonna happen. But after getting the islands dialed in, we headed over to the practice area and threw about 7 or 8 consistent shots with the nukes, feeling like, okay, it's probably gonna be the TI nuke, or is it gonna be this green ESP nuke? Kind of feeling that out, or even maybe a venom if we get too too dialed or too windy or something like that. So all in all, we felt like the game plan was pretty set, and thus we went to bed, waking up ready to go Friday for a 2 o'clock tee time, and truly feeling like we were ready to make a big splash. What we weren't ready for was the weather to have another something to say. Anytime you want to fade, pig. That's fine, that's a putt. So what started in the week as a prediction for the weather for the weekend being like high 50s to low 60s, minimal wind, and no rain on the forecast, ended up being day of rain in the morning, as well as mid to low 40s with a ton of wind while we were out there on the course. I'm trying to get used to this yellow Luna, so let's see. Yeah, that was weak side. And that was just bad. Okay, that putt was not near as hard as we just tried to make it look. Come on, Dennis. So on Friday morning, I bundled up and I went and walked with the Holland Handley, Ella Hansen, Madison Walker, and Nina Guerrero card. I wanted to walk with that card because I knew there would be less of a crowd since it wasn't one of the 2 feature cards, and Holland and Ella are absolutely amazing, so super stoked to hang out with them and like see them, and didn't get the chance to chat with Madison or Nina too much, but also great people, I'm sure. But honestly, my primary objective was to see what the wind was doing. There are several shots where you kind of throw over a tree line or into an open area, and so I wanted to see what the wind was doing in those areas so that we had a more educated guess when Brodie actually got up to his lines, as well as seeing where the more soupy parts of the course were and where the ground was going to be extra slippery, which, spoiler alert, it was crazy wet, slippery, and muddy everywhere on that course. It was honestly a Christmas miracle that everybody made it out of the parking lot the entire time, because several people got stuck and had to be towed out of the parking lot. All right, here we go. I don't think that's going to be bad. So if you've ever watched Brodie content in the past, you know that he is not a fan of the cold, and the pace of play, because we had someone on the card who was pretty slow and taking almost more than their 40-second or 30 seconds every single time on tee shots, putts, and all of it. Add that on top of a cold round, and you pretty much can guess how that first round went for Brodie. He reminded me before the rounds with a phrase that I kind of like took to heart as his caddy, and that was, if he is talking through a shot with himself, which is what he was planning to do, he wanted my input if he turned around and asked and like looked at me for it. But a phrase that really stuck with me is that I would rather throw the wrong disc confidently than second guess what I'm supposed to be throwing there, which as a caddy is hard to hear, because if you see the person like maybe walking down the wrong decision trail, as the caddy, I really do agree with that statement. And so it's really tough to balance, especially when you see someone having a tough round. Like, I want to intervene and help you, but I think if I do, I'll actually be hurting you more than I'm actually helping. And that's another thing that I really respect about seeing Brodie on the bag all week, is that the man owns he owns it all. If he's playing well, he knows that he's having an influence on it. And if he's playing bad, he isn't out here making excuses for like, oh, this person got in my way or this person did this or anything like that. Like, at no point during the weekend did I feel any pressure that he was putting towards me of like, hey, you need to caddy me out of this. I mean, he was saying, this is the worst tournament that I've ever played and ever in my career. Or, oh, this is the worst tournament that I keep making terrible decisions. I don't know why I keep making the wrong decisions, things like that. It just ended up being a super tough round one, and you could tell Brodie was like crazy frustrated. But the hope was, you know what, let's just get out of this round. It's moving super slow. And like, Brodie was physically in pain because it was moving so slow. It was about a 4-hour round for that first round. And because, once again, slow card mates, whatever it may be, but like, we struggled to get through that first round. And so just super grateful to be off the course heading into round two, where conditions got even worse. It was colder on the second day, on top of just as much wind with rain. There was rain for our first 8 holes. While I do think I can get a putter all the way up there, I think it's way easier with the Origin. Oh yeah, heard the snap on that one, ladies and gentlemen. There are 3 instances that I think sum up the second round in terms of importance. The first is after going OB on the second shot on hole 6, which was the second par 5, Brodie had a putt look inside the circle, a little short on the putt, and so we're like, oh, that is a bummer bogey to pick up, but hey, we can get back on hole 7. So hole 7 played tough for most of the week, lays the shot up next to the basket, has about a 12-foot putt, if that, lines up his putt, throws it at it, hits that veteran basket, dead center. Notice, it's not my putt, it was Brodie's putt, so we're not even exaggerating here. Dead center, and it does what veterans do. Pops it up, runs straight through, and pops out the back. Brodie takes a bogey on that hole. So we take bogey, 6-7, step up to hole 8, throws a great drive, kisses a tree by the hair of his chinny chin chin, ejects it backwards. Therefore, he has a long, just outside the circle look, misses that putt. So he has this hand warmer, taking us to event 2, has this hand warmer that he's kind of shaking to keep his hand warm, as you know, hot hands do, heading to the tee of hole 9, and this is where something absolutely crazy happens. Oh, I really thought I was gonna time like this is crazy, and then also like hit a crazy putt. The packaging on the hand warmer actually like breaks open. Black charcoal powder gets all over his hand, and we could not get the tackiness of that off. The best way I can describe how it would feel, or if you walked up to a tree branch or a tree limb or something, grabbed it and slid your hand all the way down and then had it covered in sap. So his hand was so sticky, and no amount of chalk, rosin bag, water, anything could get it off. And we were on hole 9, which is a 4-hand hole. He goes to throw his drive on that hole, and because it's so sticky, it literally sticks to his hand and comes off like this, trying to throw a pure hyzer up and over the tree. It grip locks. Literally, you can see it holding on, hits a tree, shoots immediately OB, has to re-tee, loosens it up, throws it softer because he knows he can't put any juice in it. It almost goes OB and takes a 6 on that hole. And I think that was the moment that broke Brodie for the whole event. As the caddy, you never want to see your player struggle, especially when you feel like the course is literally out to beat this man up. So we pushed through for the remaining holes, taking us to the 3rd event that was crazy, and it was hole 17. He went to throw his drive, and it was that elevated platform throwing the second island. Throws his drive, steps to watch it, and the tee paths were so slick and muddy, he literally slips and falls off of the platform like a fallen log and falls all the way down. Thankfully, didn't get hurt. Oh man, we were grateful to be out of that round. So where does that leave us for round 3 after going 4 over in round 2? We had a super stacked card. Greg Barsby, GT Hancock, and Gavin Rathbun. With beautiful weather on the last day, I think there was like this hope of it's gonna take something super special in order to make it back to the cash line. And on hole 2, the second shot that we got thrown because of the super sloshy mud, had to throw this like weird standstill backhand shot that needed a lot, and it kicks a tree and goes OB. And you could kind of just tell at that moment that Brodie threw in the towel, was just kind of looking forward to watching Masters coverage. I could tell Brodie felt super alone this weekend, and I think when you have the capability to compete and you're just not seeing it happen, it's really, really hard to not get super frustrated with yourself and stay in your head. And I think that a lot of you can probably relate to that, because especially as amateur players, when we're throwing and we don't have the mechanical skill to find consistency, it can be super frustrating wondering where the disc is going to come out every time. And I think Brodie felt that on a deeper level because he's put in the time, he's put in the work, and yeah, kind of nothing went his way. Nope. I can't throw that stable that far right. Here we go. Yep. Nice little layup. We're just gonna go ahead and putt this out and get back to the home office where I know there's no lawnmowers.
All right, if a lawnmower chases me down and tries to get in the audio here, we have a serious problem on our hands.
I think there are really three major takeaways that I had from this event and getting to spend the week hanging out with Brodie. The first is that I think that there are certain caddies who are better fits for certain players. And you kind of have to explore that relationship amongst you and people that you have caddy with you. Honestly, the more communication you can have out of what you're expecting with that caddy early on in your caddy player relationship, the easier it's going to be for everyone involved. I would say if you're bringing a caddy along who has more experience playing than you, then it might be worth it asking them for help on shots and shot selection. But I also think that the statement Brodie made of I'd rather throw the wrong shot confidently, it's all about having that communication open on the front end, so that way the caddy doesn't feel like they're lonely and isolated, just not being able to communicate or help you and watching you struggle. And at the same time, if you've made that open relationship, it makes it less lonely for you as the player, because you may be thinking to yourself, well, yeah, like I don't feel like I have to like drag this person along, especially when things aren't going that well. The second major takeaway that I had from this event is just a huge appreciation for the love that y'all continue to show. It was crazy having the opportunity to sign like 40 or 50 discs while I was out there and take way more pictures with all of you. It was super cool. Even seeing this event over the last 3 years, where it's been a sort of moment of like, wow, okay, there was a couple people that recognized me 2 years ago, and then last year there were several people that recognized me, and then even having moments this year of people literally pulling discs out of their bag and saying like, Robbie, I wanted to make sure that I saw you while I was here. That just means the world to me, and it makes the hours of like messaging, it's crazy because you can see so many numbers from the content creation side, and yet like faces being put to those names, faces being put to those screen names is so important because it just makes this all feel even more real and connected. Thank you guys for the support that you have. And then the third major takeaway is that I feel more motivated than ever to try and improve my game. Being around that level, that high level of disc golf all week did nothing but spur me on to think like, hey, I want to continue to improve my game and improve what I'm doing, because even this like 2 weeks to Maple Hill series we did, and as I continue to try to unlock long major distance in my backhand form, there are little intricacies and everything that I know about for the backhand form to help get people past beginner distance, but unlocking elite level distance is something that, man, I'm still trying to figure out the nuances of, because I think there are so many players and there are people who are trying to explain this, but we're not explaining it as best we can, or maybe we just don't really know yet and we got to get that information out there. But there are so many people that are going to get stuck in that middle ground of that 350 to 400 mark. When you get there, it can feel so hard to move past that block. And so as I'm helping blasting through it, and I'm like being helped with Strauss through all of that, it's really cool to be able to see and learn, which helps me help guide you even more so. So I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day and that you can make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie.